Joining us now, General John Teichert, retired Brigadier General in the U.S. Air Force, to talk more, beginning with this strike on U.S. forces in Jordan. Is the United States headed for war here, an escalation that cannot be avoided?
Marnie, sadly, escalation can be avoided after this tragic incident, but only if we ultimately demonstrate strength, capability, will, and resolve. We've been absorbing attacks more than one a day since the beginning of the war between Hamas and Israel. And our responses have been weak and late. And the only way that we can regain deterrence is to ultimately strike targets of significance and relevance, not just to Iranian proxies, but to Iran itself.
What are some of the options that the Pentagon will be looking at behind closed doors today to respond to Iran and its proxies?
Marty, we have been striking some of these proxy groups now for a while, though, again, very weak and very late. But there are Iranian positions around the world, especially in Iraq and in Syria, and some Iranian boats in international waters. And those types of targets now are very much on the table to try to reestablish the deterrence that we lost at least 3 months ago, if not 3 years ago.
How swiftly do you expect a U.S. response?
Marty, absolutely very soon. The longer we wait, the less likely it is to be perceived as a tough response in the minds of our adversaries in Iran. And so it must be the case that the Department of Defense takes those plans off the shelf and starts to implement them, again, to try to regain deterrence.
Do you believe this is what Iran's objective was from the beginning through its proxies, to draw the U.S. closer into a conflict?
Marnie, it's not. They were going to get away with as much as they could. I was there as a senior defense official in Baghdad during the changeover of administrations, and the Iranian groups there were salivating at the idea of American weakness under the Biden administration. And they're pushing us as far as they can go because, again, they haven't paid costs related to the activities they've supported in the Middle East, certainly in the last 3 months. They don't want a war, but they want to hurt us as much as they can. And they're not seeing any retaliation thus far. And until they do, they're going to keep going.
General, some are raising concern about the potential for miscalculation given the escalation in the region. Do you share that concern, and how can that be avoided?
Iran thus far has actually preyed on our concerns about escalation. The way that we stop escalation is not through weakness, but it's through demonstrating strength, capability, will, and resolve. And now is the time, in spite of some concerns about ultimate escalation, that we need to demonstrate strength so that they will realize it's in their best interest to back down.
Let's talk specifically about this attack and strike in Jordan. Are you surprised that they were able to do so and that U.S. technology was not able to intervene and prevent this?
Marnie, it is very tough when you get attacked daily in a variety of locations to be able to defend perfectly. And that's why I said that this was somewhat inevitable. 170 times or so in the last 4 months, we have been attacked. And we keep absorbing those attacks. And sadly, at some point, those attacks were going to cause casualties. Actually, we already had seen one casualty prior to this by a contractor who had died running to a bunker of a heart attack. 2 SEALs had died. I don't want to minimize those deaths. But because America has not responded, we realize that ultimately some of these attacks are going to get through. And finally, they did there in Jordan.
How do you expect it to change posturing in the Middle East from the United States?
We have done our best to be vigilant throughout because we know that we're getting attacked constantly. We've got great systems, we've got great tactics and procedures, but ultimately we need to maintain vigilance. But the best way to not have to maintain vigilance is to ultimately stop these attacks by taking the fight to an adversary that will keep attacking if we don't respond.
How might this latest situation impact the fighting on the ground in Gaza, the two intricately tied?
They are tied together, but ultimately Israel is continuing to pursue their interests and objectives, which is to defeat Hamas, to try to regain those hostages, and to deter other attacks against them from the region. Of course, Iran is using all of this as an opportunity to attack other positions within the Middle East, specifically American positions, whether those are in Syria or Jordan, the Red Sea, or Iraq. But ultimately, Iran is just using this as a cover to achieve their malign objectives by attacks against American positions throughout the region.
Thank you for watching. Go to NewsNationNow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.